Hello YouTube, it's Accurate again, back with episode 2 of my podcast. And I figured I don't really need a fancy name for this show. I go by the name Accurate, and the YouTube channel is called Accurate Beats, so let's just stick with the Accurate podcast. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. So welcome to Accurate Podcast episode 2. And I put out the first episode like a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned that people could send me beats and I would listen to them on the podcast and kind of review them. So this will also be the first instance of my beat review part of the podcast. So that's coming up later on, and I'm going to talk about Behringer a little bit, and I want to talk about the fact that I updated to Catalina on my Mac, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about backing up, about lo-fi. And I also got a lot of questions on Instagram about mixing and mastering. A lot of you guys wanted me to touch on that in this episode. So let's talk about that real quick and just let me share my 2 cents about mixing and mastering when it comes to instrumental beats that you release just as they are. Mixing and mastering rap songs is a completely different kind of thing, and nothing that I'm very much into these days. So let's just talk about the stuff that I do, the instrumental sides of things. But let's start off by actually listening to some of your beats. And I've listened to more than these that I'm playing in this episode. And I just have to say that you guys are freaking talented. It's just crazy. You're probably watching my YouTube channel, or at least following me on Instagram and stuff for what I do, which I don't really understand because a lot of you people are way better at making music and beats than I am. Some of the tracks that I was submitted was just amazing. And you're gonna hear some of that in this episode. So let's start off with something called With My Eyes Closed. That's the name of the file, and the guy who did it is Frankie Derpham. Frankie Derpham? I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but With My Eyes Closed is the name of the beat. So let's listen to that, and maybe let's talk a little bit about it as well. And by the way, I hope this isn't super disrespectful, but some of the tracks that were like 3 or 4 minutes long, I'm not going to be able to play them from start to end, because that just takes too much time out of the podcast, I think. Or maybe not. Well, for this episode, I'm going to stop them whenever I feel like I have a good sense of what the track is. This one isn't that long, I think, so it's 2 minutes, 19 seconds. So let's listen to that. Frankie Derpham, With My Eyes Closed. Yeah. Okay. Ah. Okay, so right off the bat, you might just sign this off as a beat with a simple melody played on a keyboard, and it's not much going on. But when you listen to this part of the track, it sounds like you started to put in a lot of small chops, like small vocal pieces and different small things that just acts as percussive elements in the track. I really like that. Whoop. Yeah. We have two distinctive parts of the beat, and I like them both. I like them together, to hear one after the other. It feels like, yeah, it's more of the same thing, but it's different, and it makes you feel like something new and fresh is happening, and I really like that. The melody itself is kind of straightforward and really simple, but who says that simple is bad, right? It also becomes catchy in a way. I mean, you can, even though I've just heard this beat like twice, I still know the melody in my head, and I can hum it myself, and that's a. If that's what you're going for, you really did it here. It sounds really cool to be able to have that simple kind of synth line in the front of it all. I was thinking a little bit about my levels here, because it feels like the kick drum is. It sounded to me like I had the kick drum, like I had the beat distorting somewhere in my signal chain, because I'm playing it over here and I'm using the S4 as the overall audio interface for the playing of the beat, and then it goes back into my audio cues 8 to be recorded, and it sounded like it's distorted somewhere, and it's not. It's just a kick drum that sounds. I'm not saying that it sounds bad or that it's weird, but I wasn't expecting a kick drum like that on a beat like this. It feels like it's maybe a little bit distorted in the mix, and that's maybe what you were going for. I think it could be lowered in volume when it's that like hard knocking, but it sounds cool, and I like the fact that you put some more pad-like sounds at the bottom of the mix to blend in with the synth line. And again, the really good use of the small like whoop and some vocal thing that just lives in the mix as percussive elements. I think they actually make a lot of the they create a lot of the fun that I hear in this track. So really good job. And I don't have much more to say about it. The hi-hat programming was also kind of fun, and yeah, a fun little track right there, With My Eyes Closed by Frankie Derpham. So that's the first one. Again, I don't really feel too secure about talking about people's music, because, yeah, you're as talented as I am, or even more talented, and it's good stuff. I don't want to be I don't want to go too deep into my opinions about it. I like this one. It's nice and simple. It could be worked on a little bit more with a third part that makes it even more, like, switches it up more, I guess. But you don't really need to listen to me when I say stuff like that. However, here is a really late submission that I got here like half an hour ago by WPFR Sounds. I'm gonna leave the link in the description. Greg is his name, and the track is called Machine, just as machine, with a German spelling. So let's listen to that. Thank you, by the way, for submitting tracks like this. It's, yeah, I do enjoy it. Machine.
Play this record as
Oh. It changes up. So I guess no. There goes the drums. Cool. That's a funny ending of a track. Well, cool. It feels like this was 1 minute and 26 seconds long, and I would love this track to be like 3 minutes, with going from this really long intro with all the sounds coming in and out and everything being well balanced like that, and then hit harder with the drums somewhere. It's just a matter of personal taste, but to me this sounds like something that could be kind of like maybe an intro of a beat tape or something. But the part here, I think it's here somewhere. Will you get the snare? I just want more of that. I want more kind of traditional hip hop, which is kind of what I always want. But you know, the sounds are really, really nicely layered upon each other, and I like the bass, and I like the guitar, and I like the little metallic percussive chuku chuku thing, even though that might be a little loud in the mix. I think the overall feel, the emotions that I get from this beat says more than the actual beat itself really does from a first listen. I mean, everything that you're doing in the intro of this is just, I think it's amazing to be able to have that sense of dynamics and make it. I have to listen a little bit more from the beginning. Yeah.
Play this record as frequently as possible.
There is probably where I would go for a full drum set. Or here. But the way you work with the effects and everything, to have them, the delays ring out and have everything like meshed together like that, to me, this is more than a beat. This is like a mix between what I call a normal beat, an instrumental hip-hop track, and this kind of sound design kind of experiment thing that's not being too weird to listen to. I like it a lot, but in a beat tape, I guess this would be like a skit or the intro or the outro or something like that. Or maybe it's just me who's crazy about the drums and I want the drums on everything. Really cool submission, really well work with the guitar and the bass and stuff. Is that like you actually playing the guitar? It kind of sounds like it, and then just chopped it up and layered it wherever it's supposed to go. I do like it a lot. Thanks a lot for the submission. Even though it came in a little bit late, I managed to squeeze it in here, and I don't have much negative to say more than that. I would have wanted the track to start somewhere, you know, a long intro with the delays and the beautiful sounds and everything, and then just some hard-hitting drums on top of that to make it sound like, I don't know, sound like something I would have done. No, you do you, and this is really cool. I really like that a lot. Well done, Greg, or should I say at WPFR Sounds. Really well put together. Here we have another guy who reached out to me over email, I think. Marco Salmela. The beat is called Letkee in one word. Letkee. I don't know. Let's have a listen. Something was off. There. Okay, it's been 1 minute and I just have to, like, the sound here is again really, really nice. It sounds like you chopped up a piano sample. You also wrote something in your email. Let's see there. All done with the MPC Live with plugins and the stock piano sample. My biggest problem is that I can't finish these. Like, I've played some guitar over it, I'm missing bass, and I would like some strings before it's ready to mix. Okay, so this is purely a demo beat, which can be heard from the fact that you don't have a bass line in there, and that something is... I have to be honest and say it flat out. There's something with the piano here that's not really right. Either if it's the piano or the bell or the glockenspiel or whatever it's called that collides in one of the main chords, but it's something there that's not really in tune, and yeah, I can't really see through that. Yeah, it's something that just isn't totally in tune, and that can be fixed. That could be worked on by just fine-tuning something in the sample, or find another note on the piano or whatever. I like the sound of it. It's nice and it's cool and it's really like mellow and a little bit dreamy as well when you have the atmosphere in the bottom of it. I'm not crazy about the hi-hat you used here, or maybe I am, but it's just a little bit loud in the mix. But as you said, it's not mixed, it's not finished, and I think you definitely should finish this one. Fix the thing that sounds a little bit off with the piano, something in there that's not in tune, that needs to be fixed. Lower the volume of the hi-hat and put a bass line, a deep, subby bass line on this one would be really nice. But I do like it a lot. It becomes a little bit repetitive when you listen back to it a lot, and I've heard this one 3 or 4 times now to try to look for things that I like and don't like. And to be honest, I think you're really onto something really cool here. And you also wrote in your email that you haven't been into hip hop for that long, and I can't tell that from the beat at all. And you're working on the MPC Live, which is cool. So keep at it and just make this into a finished track. And I would love to listen back to it again and see how you can fix the piano and maybe add a bass line and see what that would do to the entire mix. Let's go for a few seconds more. Yeah, so the sound of the hi-hat could be changed somehow, but I do really appreciate the fact that you put the time in and like played or edited your hi-hats to be triple notes sometimes and to be 16 notes and 8 notes every now and then. It just makes the beat sound a little bit more swingy or funky or whatever, and I like that a lot. Also, the use of a crash cymbal like that. Not really my favorite thing to do. I used to do that back in the days whenever I had when I produced a rap record and I had the chorus coming after the verse. I would just drop all the drums, and to be able to get back to a really intense part of the track, I would use a crash cymbal like that on the first hit to let everyone know that this is where the chorus starts and this is what's up. In this case, I don't know. I think you can take it pretty far without using a crash cymbal like that. But that's just my personal opinion, as everything else in this video kind of has been already. Here we have another fourth person. This is Nathan Brutocao. I don't know. Nathan sent me 2 beats, one called Sampled Love and one called Sampled Album Song. So let's go for the Sampled Album Song. Version 1, by the way. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Oh. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is right up my alley. I really, really enjoy this track. A pitched up, I guess is a soul sample. So a pitched up soul sample and some drums and swing and a bunch of different variations. That's really good work. It's a really good track. The intro, yeah. It's a classic idea to have it super lo-fi and super equalized in the beginning and then just switch everything up. You also did something cool with the filter right before it started to hit hard again. It's cool. It's really, really nice. If I have to be negative about something, which I think is kind of the purpose of making beat reviews, not negative, but you know, being honest about it. Something about the drums, I get what you're going for. You're trying to change it up between the normal drum kit and then introducing is that a ride cymbal? It sounds like it. I think it's really cool and I like the effect that you're going for, but it becomes a little bit too much to me. I still like the sample because you're really flipping the sample good here. And you have a bunch of different variations with the repeated notes over time and stuff. Super nice, cool boom bap sound, which I really enjoy. But messing up the drums with the loud, I'm gonna call it a ride cymbal because I don't know what else it might be. I think you could just not go for that. Just keep the same drums. You had a really nice, stable, straight 8-note hi-hat right here. To me, that really sells the sound of a beat like this. To have something steady going, like 8 notes like that. Everything doesn't have to be super funky and super messed up. But over here, it's a good idea. It's a really good idea, but maybe it's just a little bit too loud for me. Still talking about that ride cymbal. But otherwise, this track is just amazing. I wish I would found this sample and flipped it like this because it's really cool. And it's obvious that you struggled a little bit with the sample in some parts of this because it's a lot of drums going on in the sample in the background. And to me, try to cut or filter that out would just be a mess and totally unnecessary. I think it's cool that you left it like this. It makes it sound a bit rawer and more hardcore than it would be if you like try to get around that in another way. So I really like that a lot. And you have the different variations that you need for a beat like this. One that's like recognizable and you can remember it, and that's like the main part of the beat, and then all of a sudden comes another chop of the same sample, another pattern that is. Yeah, I like this one a lot. This is right up my alley, and this sounds like something I wish that I would do myself. Put some scratch on this one and you have something. You don't need scratch for this. That's not what I'm saying. I'm thinking about the bass line here. Da-dum-dum, da-dum-dum. Is that from the sample or have you added that? Because if you've added it, I would say keep that and layer it with another bass as well to have something even deeper, even though that might conflict a little bit with the kick drum. I'm not sure. Well, the camera died, but whatever. Really nice job, and I'm really thankful that you sent this my way and wanted me to feature it on this podcast, because this is one of those beats that I really feel like, yeah, this inspires me a lot to hear beats just like that. Pitched up with a sample, it's kind of classic and kind of a sound that a lot of people has done, but that's what I'm all about as well. So good job, Nathan. I really, really appreciated that. Let's see if you wrote something in the email. No, he didn't write very much. But I feel like I want to listen to the second beat as well because, this one really grabbed me. But let's give someone else a little bit of space in this episode. And I got this link from, let's see, who was that? Emil. A Swedish guy, apparently, Emil Lindberg, but yeah, Emil, and his account name on SoundCloud, his artist name is also Emil, but it's spelled in a different way than the Swedish name Emil. So, Emil, this is a SoundCloud link. It should still work to play, I guess. So let's just take. He submitted an entire EP of 5 tracks. So let's just listen to the first one, which has the most number of plays. And I noticed that another one in here has a sample that I can't really play on YouTube because of the copyright things. So let's listen to Outer Planetary Head Trip by Emil. Emil. Yeah. skip ahead to... it's kind of similar. Okay, cool. Email. I recognize this sample a lot. I think I've used it for something. I think I have it on my hard drive or a record somewhere. The sample is really cool, and what you did with it is different from what I would have done, and I like that. A nice slow track. It feels good to listen to, and that eighth note piano thing, that sounds really in tune, by the way, and really nicely added. I'm kind of sure that's not a part of the sample. I think you added that yourself, which makes it way even better, because being able to do stuff like that is something special. I think that's really cool. And with the bass line you have, that normal like doom, 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 together with the drums and the sample, it just makes it entirely into a thing it's just music, Nothing stands out, nothing is crazy in any way at all. It sounds like it's well produced, even though it doesn't have a lot of different elements to it. It's like, from what I can hear, it's the sample, it's a bass line, the piano comes in later, and the drums, which is kind of all you need when you think about it. And to me, this sounds really good. I think you deserve more place than you have on your entire thing, because I've listened to all of the beats for at least a little bit, and they all sound kind of nice. Even though the Dreaming, the number 3, Dreamin', that sample has been used so many times by so many really good people in kind of a similar fashion. So that's my only critique for that one. But for the track that we actually listened to, I don't have much to say. I think it was nice. If I would have taken the same sample, I would speed it up a lot, and I would make a faster kind of beat and make everything more energized. But in this case, it sounds nice with a vocal sample in there being just like inaudible what they actually say. So that's cool. I think it's good. Yeah, one of those slow, nice beats that feels good to listen to. I do appreciate that a lot. Thank you, Email, for submitting this track. Yeah, I want to recommend the entire EP here, actually, because it's really nice, and you have 32 followers on SoundCloud. So if SoundCloud is your main thing and what you want to do, people should go there and give you a little bit more attention, because it's really nice. It is. So we've listened to, let's see here, we have listened to Emil, Nathan, Marco, Greg, and Frank. So a bunch of guys this time sending in beats. In the future, I would love to see some female producers to drop me some links to your beats as well. But in this case, 5 guys, 5 good beats, and I think I had something to say about some of them that kinda, I hope, becomes valuable in the process of finishing the tracks. But I don't know. It's just my opinions. It doesn't matter that much. Now, I also noticed that it becomes kind of difficult for me to follow along what's sent to me when I use Instagram and Discord and YouTube and Facebook and whatever. So in the future, I will accept the beat that comes in on my email, nothing else, because on email I can just flag the different emails and put them in categories straight away on my phone and go back to them and listen, because the amount of beats that was sent to me was more than I expected. And yeah, in the future, just send me an email on accuratemcc@gmail.com with MP3 files or links to whatever, and I'm like sure to do this in my next episode of the podcast as well. Cool. So that segment of the podcast is over, and I want to go on to talk a little bit about at least a few of the topics I had written down in beforehand. And the first one is Behringer. And I just want to talk about Behringer real quick, because people seem to have really strong opinions about Behringer and what Behringer are doing right now. And I get questions on Instagram and YouTube about the different products from Behringer. And well, yeah, people are upset and people are in love and people are both left and right about this. So what Behringer are doing is pretty much just re-releasing products that aren't available on the market anymore. Something like the Mini Moog from Moog, or from Moog, I don't know, I don't care. That company released the Mini Moog, and that's a classic synthesizer, and it's really expensive. And it's not, they don't make it anymore. So Behringer steps in, rebuilds the entire thing from ground up, and release it in a new form factor. And at a new price point. So it makes it accessible to your average bedroom producer to get access to in this case, the Poly D, which is their version of the Mini Moog, or the Model D before that, but the Poly D, let's talk about that. And, well, I can see both sides of the party here. So in one way, I think it's really cool and great that they are putting out these really classic original things and make them accessible to anyone because of the lower price point. But there's definitely a problem with just stealing products from someone else and stealing like the invention from someone else. So if I were the inventor, if I was Bob Moog, for instance, and I had the entire Mini Moog thing, I came up with that, or I released it in my company, and then Behringer just steps in and takes over the thing and re-releases the same thing. It's not original, and even though they might have legal rights to do what they're doing, something feels a little bit off with the idea of just stealing something from someone else, like re-releasing a synthesizer at a lower price point from someone else, and just, there's something about that. It's the same thing with the Roland 808 drum machine, and they made a version of the SH101 as well. And, well, it's both very positive and very negative, and I don't really feel the need to go on a rant about anything here, not like, yeah, this is awesome, this is what you should do, take this one next. And not either like, hey, stop this at all cost right now because you're like stealing stuff from someone else, stealing inventions and whatnot. I feel like I don't have anything here from Behringer, and I haven't had anything from Behringer for a bunch of years. The only thing I think I've had is one of the really cheap, crappy DJ mixers from Behringer back in the day. And it broke down really quick. And that was back in the days when Behringer was known for bad build quality, pretty much. Now, people are saying good things about the new things from Behringer, and if they were to contact me to ask me about making something with the Poly D or something like that, I wouldn't say no out of some kind of reason at all, basically. I would just accept it because I think it's kind of cool. But it's still problematic in a way, the fact that this is not their product, this is the Mini Moog. Sure, they've done some like enhancements to it that makes it fit the modern market a little bit more. That's cool, but it's not their original idea. You can't say that. It's obviously stolen from Moog. So it doesn't feel super pure and super clean, super original of them, but it's still kind of cool that they put these things out on the market, making them accessible. So, half and half. I'm pretty much half and half about this. We're just talking about the music industry and the market here. So either you can support them by buying these things and saying that, yay, it's good, I think it's okay, I approve. Or you can just go the other way and just not buy the things from Behringer. Just, if you don't like what they're doing, don't support them by buying the products. If you like what they do and you're interested in getting the sounds, buy the stuff and get it. It doesn't have to be harder than that. But it's a big controversy right now. A lot of people are upset with Behringer and have strong opinions. So I just wanted to share my view on this real quick here. Okay, so that's check on that topic for this podcast. That's cool. Now, Mac OS X Catalina. Let's talk about that real quick because I used my MacBook Pro from 2018, like late 2018. I think it's a really cool, really good computer. It does what it needs to do, even though I wish I would have waited and gotten the 16-inch MacBook Pro, because the 16-inch MacBook Pro just, it's a so much better computer. That's just what it is. I can't deny that. But I have the 2018 15-inch MacBook Pro, and I'm super happy with it. It does whatever I want it to do, and it works fine. But I've been hesitant about updating it to Mac OS X Catalina, and I did that like a few days, maybe a week ago. I had a lot of updates to do and a lot of things that wasn't up to date and installed properly with the licenses and everything. So it took me a couple of hours to get everything running again. And now Machine, Logic, Final Cut Pro, all the different plugins I use from Waves and Isotope and Arturia and everything just seems to work with Mac OS X Catalina right now. So my experience so far is that it's really cool. I try to use my girlfriend's iPad. This is one of the cheaper iPads from 2019 or 18, I'm not sure. That kind of $350 one. And use this for Sidecar, which kind of worked, but I immediately felt like, I don't have a really good use for this, because either if it stands by the monitor, it's too far away, and if I have it closer to me, I have more things that I need closer to me, and maybe I'll put it somewhere in the studio for Sidecar work when I need to, but it's more a gimmick and more a fun thing to be able to use than something I would use on a daily basis. So that's what it is. Besides that, Mac OS X Catalina is kind of making my computer work a little bit better, but the thing I'm really going for and trying to say here is that I always do this. I don't update my operating system to the latest version of Mac OS X before I know that like all of the different companies that I use and most of the different products that I use from the companies, that is working and fully compatible. Now everything seems to be compatible, and I give it a try and it seems to work good. But my advice to anyone is just don't be too quick on rushing into a new Mac OS X update, because it's going to take a few weeks or months or whatever for all the manufacturers to get their software updated and to be compatible with the new version of Mac OS. So that's just my view this far. It's not dangerous to update to Mac OS X Catalina. It seems to work with pretty much everything I have, and just beware of this and check your different softwares in beforehand before you update to see if it's actually compatible or not. Because if it's not compatible, it's going to stop the workflow totally, and you're going to have to do a bunch of things and maybe even go back to the previous version, and that's such a headache. I had to do that once a couple of years ago. It's no fun at all. So so far my experience is just positive about Mac OS X Catalina. It works with everything that I use, so that's good. And it always feels good to know that I'm up to date with everything from Apple. So now I am, and it feels good. And the next word I wrote here is just backup. And I just want to say that real quick. I have this kind of bad habit, I guess, to be a little bit sloppy with my backup, and I don't back up as much as I should. But every time, every December, now it's the 14th of December, so every December I collect everything on the computer, even though I might have backups on Time Machine and whatever. I just take everything in the computer manually and just copying it over to another external hard drive to just have something kind of up to date, a complete update like that on a hard drive, and I put that at my dad's house, so I know that if everything just fails on me, or if the house sets on fire or whatever, I still have a copy of my entire computer from December of this year at my dad's house. Now, you should do this every other week or whatever, but every December I get this extra feeling that, oh shit, I don't handle my backup the way I should. Now, I'll have to say that I do have a backup system. I'm using Time Machine frequently, and I have this Dropbox thing that links files and keeps them updated. But nonetheless, a complete full backup of the entire computer on a separate hard drive at another place than my apartment or studio is always a good thing. And the end of the year just happens to be the best time for me to sit down and actually do that. So that's just my note to you guys as well. If you haven't backed up your computer or your creative work, whatever you're into, do it now and don't wait, because backing up is important, and losing everything you have is kind of, that could be devastating. So that's just my small reminder of backing up your systems. Cool. Okay, so next up is mixing and mastering. A lot of people are asking me about my mix and master process of the tracks that I release, and how I handle mixing and mastering of my instrumental beats that I make here on a daily basis. And to be honest, I'm not a snob when it comes to plugins or mixing tools at all. When I make a beat and I'm in the creative process of working on something, I tend to just normally use most of the plugins and effects that are built into whatever I use. So when I'm on Machine and I need a delay, I'm just using the delay in Machine. Sometimes I go for something more fancy when I need extra fine control, but mostly I want things to be quick, in the creative process when I'm making a track and the effect is a part of the beat. Like a delay or something that you use creatively like that, or even an equalizer. I tend to use the ones that are most nearby and the ones I have at hand. So if I'm working in Logic, I'm using the built-in plugins first as well, because that's really quick and easy to pull up. But then I also have the complete is not the right word, I guess. I have a bunch of different nice plugins from Waves that I use for delays and for reverbs and for when I sidechain things, I do it in Machine first, and then I go back and I rearrange the track in Logic, and then I use one of the Waves compressors to sidechain something on the sampler or on the sample to the bass drum and stuff like that. So I do use some kind of fancy effects from Waves like that, and they really make a big difference when you're mixing and finishing your tracks. But again, in the creative process, I normally don't go there, because fiddling around with the graphical interface of something like the Waves plugins, I just find it takes much of the fun experience of making music out of it. Using one of the built-in things that are pre-mapped to Machine right off the bat is just a lot quicker. Now, a lot of plugins like this also has this NKS functionality that makes Machine map directly to the plugin. And sure, that's really cool, and I enjoy that a lot. I think it's amazing when I work on either Machine or the Complete Control S61. It's nice to have the control right there, but normally when I'm in the creative process and I'm in the beat making part, I don't go for the fancy effects at all. I just use whatever's built in, and then I go back and double check on it. And if I'm not really finding what I'm looking for, I'm just throwing one of my fancy plugins on it. Normally it's from Waves. I have a lot of cool stuff from Waves, and I use them for mixing and mastering. Not so much, because I have the Isotope Ozone 9, Ozone 8. I'm not sure now which one I use, but I use that one for mastering. I'm gonna get into that in a minute, but the Waves plugins is really making my life a lot easier when I'm in the mixing process of a track. What I'm saying is just that it maybe doesn't matter so much when I'm just pumping the music loud on the speakers. I want to try to make a beat, but then when I go back to it and I fine tune everything, I normally just replace all the built-in effects and stuff with things from Waves instead. And then comes the question if that's necessary, or if I could deal with the built-in effects or the effects that I have easily accessible to me at hand. And the answer there is that I could definitely just stick with many of the built-in effects and be really happy with that. I don't need, and I don't think a lot of people really needs, the super high quality effects from, for instance, Waves or Slate Audio or whatever those fancy brands are called. Normally you can get really, really, really far with just the built-in effects, and I don't want to force anyone to look into more fancy, more expensive effects like that. I'm saying effects, but I mean plugins in general. It's a game changer in a lot of ways when you're sitting down and actually mixing the track, but if you don't have it, you don't have it. I know a lot of really, really talented producers that makes beats that sound smashing with just like the built-in plugins in something like FL Studio or whatever. Now I happen to have the Waves things and I enjoy them a lot, so why not use them when I have the time for it, right? And I also had a really bad habit when I was younger, and I used to spend hours and hours on fiddling around with my plugins and my effects and my different values of my dryness of my reverb and whatever. And I learned that normally I'm just hurting the mix the more I work on it. It's not because I'm really bad at mixing, because I kind of am, but it's also the fact that I get tunnel vision after a while and I just keep working on the same thing without really seeing any kind of improvement. And I think that I hear something that becomes a little bit better, and then I add even more, and I go to another effect and I add more. And all of a sudden I'm just stuck there with a mix that's overly worked on. And nowadays I try to mix things as little as possible and to go crazy with effects as little as possible, because all the things I have at hand when it comes to drums, samples, bass lines, synthesizers, everything sounds good out of the box. So a lot of the times I just have to double check on my EQ. I have to cut some bass here, I need to cut some treble here, and setting my values on my levels just nice and make it sound good without using too many plugins. Of course, plugins makes a big difference, but when you start to stack different effects on each other and go crazy like that, to me it's really easy for me to just spend hours and I don't really see a proper improvement on the actual mix. So when it comes to compressors, for instance, I just slap on a compressor normally from Waves when I'm in the mix process, and I just start with one of the presets that I think sounds okay. I look to the different values a little bit without getting too crazy and nitpicking about the actual numbers. I just check that nothing is like distorting anywhere. I'm adjusting my levels until I'm fine, and I'm normally like spending, let's say, something like 2 minutes on a setting for my compressor. If I do it even more and I start to fiddle around too much with the threshold and the gain and everything, I just get stuck in there and I get tunnel vision and nothing gets improved. So quick fixes is what makes me tick here. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and just leaving it as it is normally is a lot better than going back and forth with the same thing over and over again. I used to do that because I thought mixing was this really advanced thing that you had to know everything about. Either you were good at mixing or you were lousy at mixing. Nowadays, I guess you can always say that it's lo-fi. You can always say that it doesn't have to be properly mixed, and I think it has to. I think music has to sound okay for the idea of the track to be out there and to be recognizable by anyone. But you don't have to go crazy about getting the right effect, because there's always a right and a wrong choice to make, and I just happen to make the wrong choice a lot of the times, and then I just don't care about it, or I just change to another plugin with less settings, and I'm fine, Now, I don't want to come off as a hypocrite here and say that mixing isn't important at all, because I think it is, but don't get too into it and too crazy with it. It's gonna hurt the music, and it's gonna hurt your ears, and you're gonna be frustrated with everything that you hear in the long run. So for me, I just mix things to the degree that I'm kind of happy. I don't have to be overly excited about it. It's just, I put this plug in and it makes a difference and it makes it a little bit better. I don't need to mix it in 100%. I just need to touch on it a little bit and then go into mastering. Now I just want to go into the computer and see which version I'm actually using. Isotope Ozone 8. Yeah, so I'm using Ozone 8 for all my mastering, and what I do when I'm happy with the mix, I just export the entire track as a high definition WAV file, and I put it in a folder together with the other tracks for the same project. Then I just pull all the files into a standalone version of Ozone 8, and I do use the mixing or mastering assistant to identify what's wrong with the mix or how many decibels it needs to be increased to be able to come through. And I use that as a baseline, and then I double check on my limiter and my compressor and my equalizing, and I'm pretty much done, because nowadays when I'm deaf on the right ear, I don't have to think about or maybe I should, but I have decided to not think about my panning or my stereo picture at all. I'm just trying to keep everything mono, and it is what it is. So EQ, compression, limiter, that's pretty much all I have to do from the thing in Ozone when I'm done the master assistant. And I'm testing out a few different presets and try to see what I'm looking for. And when I'm kind of close to it, I go into the different parts of Ozone 8 manually, again, the EQ, the compressor, and the limiter, and I'm happy like that. It doesn't need to be harder than that, because everyone mixes music differently nowadays, and the whole loudness war that has been going on in the pop music industry, I don't have to think about that, and you don't either, so don't care. I don't care at all if my volume is 2 decibels lower than the latest Ariana Grande song. It doesn't matter. I am who I am, and I do what I do, and my mixing and my mastering is not that advanced, to be honest. I just do whatever I do based on a preset, and I tweak them a little bit, and I think that's fine. But I do use things from Waves and things from Isotope, because that's the same thing as with my thumbnails or my logos or whatever. I use Photoshop. I could use something less expensive and less professional, I guess. But when I have it at hand and I can use it, why not just go for Photoshop? Why not just go for the Waves suite of plugins? Or why not go for Ozone 8 when I happen to have it? So, is it necessary for everyone to use Ozone? No. Definitely not. I've tried the Lander, LANDR, Lander service for mastering as well, and I was kind of happy with the result I got, even though I'm a little bit of a control freak, and I want to know which settings I could manipulate and whatever kind of result that gets me. But if that's all you have, I think Lander is, I think it makes a difference to the track. Sometimes it gets overly saturated and too much, and sometimes it gets not so good, but If that's all you have, I think that's better than nothing. Or just use the built-in effects in whatever DAW or software you're working with. Everything has a compressor, an equalizer, and a limiter, and you can use these tools to get your mastering to where you want. It only has to do. Knowledge is the big thing here. To know your tools well and to be able to use them in a smart and creative way for you and for what you're doing, that's way more important than the actual tool itself. So yeah, Isotope Ozone sounds really good, and the compressors and the equalizers and stuff from Waves also sounds really good, but you could definitely do with whatever is built into your DAW. Just a matter of learning. So I guess I didn't really give any kind of concrete suggestions about what to do, but when it comes to beats, I think everyone needs to be aware of the bass frequencies in the tracks, because normally I hear a lot of people just blasting on with the bass on their music because it sounds cool and it sounds loud and much and deep and whatever. But to me, it's always more important to have kind of a balanced mix and let everything shine through. That's more important to me than having the bass being really like subby or grabbing you as a listener. So that's what I do for all my tracks when I'm in my mixing process, is that I first of all I go into the different tracks in solo and just see on an equalizer how much information I have in my lower register, how much is going on in the bass. Is it too much with the drums, and the drums and the bass line crashes and doesn't work together? Then you have to correct that and be aware that bass takes a lot of physical space. So when you listen to music on monitors, the bass becomes a problem. And if you have way too much noise and stuff in the higher register as well, it's important to cut those off whenever you're working with samples and things. So taking off something in the bass and something on the really, really high treble is always good for certain instruments. And I think that helps to make a more balanced mix, you know? So basically, the equalizer is a great tool to have, and everyone should learn how to use it. So I think this has been kind of a long episode of the podcast, and I think I should round this off right now. We talked about Behringer, Mac OS X Catalina, backing up. Don't forget to back up. And we talked a little bit about mixing and mastering. If you need anything more specific in a future episode about mixing and mastering, or whatever, really, or if you have something completely different you want me to touch on in this episode, in this podcast, I'm sorry, feel free to get in touch. Comments are appreciated on YouTube and Instagram and whatever. But if you have beats to submit for this beat review thing that I'm doing on the podcast, I would prefer to get like a link or a file, or get the music to me over email. It's way easier than anything else. My email is accuratemcc@gmail.com. It's written down here, and just send me whatever you have in terms of beats. I'm gonna try to feature. This time we did 5. I think I'm gonna go for 5 beats per video per podcast. I think that's decent enough, and it's a nice number to have. Now, with that said, please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you like this and my other type of videos. That's a cool thing. You could support me on Patreon, even though I'm not really active on Patreon, but that's just a way to support the channel. You don't have to do that. It's just a possibility that I'm gonna put out there. So comment, subscribe, maybe Patreon, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next video and in the next podcast. But also I want to say that I made live streams a while ago, way before my surgery and everything. I did live streams on the YouTube channel, and I took questions live. I am gonna get back to that, and we're gonna do like the Accurate Podcast live episodes as well. So next episode is probably not going to be live, but maybe the one after that, who knows. Some people have asked me about that, and I just want to say that I would like to do this live, even though recording it like this is also kind of relaxed and fun, and I can just talk without having to think about a chat room or anything like that. But real-time live questions would also be really appreciated for a live show. So that's coming up, but yeah, this podcast just has to end. Thanks a lot for watching or listening or whatever. By the way, I'm gonna try to get this podcast released in an audio form on like the Podcaster app and stuff like that in the future, but I think I need a little bit more experience and to do just a few more episodes. So maybe when we're up to like 5 episodes, I'm gonna look into that for real and get them all uploaded on a real platform so you can listen to them on the Podcaster app, on your Apple device or whatever, to make the podcast accessible. But for now, it's just YouTube. Thanks a lot for being here, and I hope to see you in the next one. Questions and everything are appreciated. Yeah, thanks, and bye.